The year is 2275, and the Legion threatens the sovereignty of all settlers in southern Arizona. The entire region was but only another trophy for Caesar. Caesar's legion had their eyes set on conquering the small tribes that populated the area. All seemed hopeless for the fearful wastelanders that waited to be brutalized by legionnaires. That was until an unnamed man rose to power in Puerto Penasco, a settlement directly under Legion-occupied Phoenix. This unnamed man quickly rallied numerous rival gangs under his voice. His charisma and tenacity drew enthusiastic support from his fellow countrymen. This man took on the name Billy Clanton, named after the infamous cowboy in pre-war history. Billy Clanton organized bands of raiders to disrupt Legion supply routes. Billy, unwavered by the threat of the Legion, continued to be a thorn in Caesar's side. Diplomatic relations deteriorated at an alarming rate. The cowboys were on the brink of an all-out war against the Legion. That is where our story begins. It was in early May that the Penasco cowboys began to reinforce their border. Billy anticipated retaliation from Legion forces. Their scouts had reported that a large force had been pulled from the Mojave. The cowboy organized each detachment into groups of 150. In total, he had about 750 able-bodied fighters. This was too small compared to the Legion, so Billy invested in machine gun production. He planned to fight a defensive war. He knew the Legion favored melee combat, and he planned on exploiting that to his advantage. A few weeks later, Caesar's Legion declared war. The stubborn cowboy was prepared though. He had set machine gun nests all around hills and cliffs. Any sort of infantry charge would prove fatal to the attackers. And that was exactly what happened to the legionnaires that attacked. Their casualties were innumerable. Billy Clanton held entrenched positions as hundreds of legionnaires charged them. Their machine guns lit up the red tide until it was nothing more than a few routing survivors. This happened over and over, wave after wave. The Legion attempted to use their own firearms, but their lack of gun training caused minor losses to the cowboys. After a week-long battle, tired legionnaires finally retreated back into Phoenix. Their entire army had almost been wiped out, having suffered over 7,000 casualties. Wounded and battered legionnaires fled like bewildered mongrels. Billy Clanton and his cowboys pressed the advantage. 500 fighters and 400 new conscripts invaded the city of Phoenix. The Legion's routing army had no time to dig themselves in. The Penasco cowboys swung the momentum in their favor and easily overtook the city. With an estimated 30,000 inhabitants, South Phoenix was a prized metropolis. After that, Billy continued into North Phoenix while a separate army group ventured eastwards towards Red Rock. The cowboys were determined to bring Caesar to his knees and crush the aggressor. The secondary army moved to their destination with little opposition. Only a few hundred legionnaires defended the eastern region. After taking North Phoenix, Billy now faced a stronger enemy. Twice as many legions had been withdrawn from the Mojave to fight the cowboys. Neither side managed to gain the upper hand. But he understood. He understood that because they were matched in Phoenix, the Legion would be short-handed at Red Rock. The secondary army continued to expand outward, absorbing settlements and resources along their way. Now, at this point, the hangdogs began to encroach into Legion territory from the east, while the cowboys forced their way up towards Flagstaff. Their next operation was to seize the city of Three Roads, the intersection of three major highways. Meanwhile, Billy Clanton devised a new plan. The main bulk of his army would push towards Black Canyon, creating a decoy for Legion forces, and while the Legion would be preoccupied with repelling their attack, Billy Clanton himself would command a division of veterans and maneuver straight for the Legion's capital. This was a risky strategy, but the bold cowboy was willing to take the gamble. Back on the eastern front, the cowboys had stretched too thin and began to collapse their front line. The dwindling legionnaires took their opportunity to encircle small pockets of cowboys. The commanding officer saw the immediate threat and ordered all divisions to retreat and regroup. Though they seemed to be winning, one foolish mistake would determine the outcome of the war. But for some, the order to retreat came too late. Hundreds of troops had been encircled and slaughtered by the Legion. It wasn't long before the hangdogs began to push further west into the heart of Legion lands. The Legion that was stationed at Three Roads turned hightail and ran. While the Legion armies fought at Black Canyon, Billy saw his chance and immediately capitalized on it. His small army of veterans made a straight dash towards Flagstaff. Within a few days, the Legion capital had fallen, but the battles had just begun. An army of 600 legionnaires stormed the city. They were met by Roy Clanton, Billy's eldest son. As the wave of legionnaires charged, Roy and 65 veterans opened fire from their mounted machine guns. They cut down 400 legionnaires in one fell swoop. The other 200 legionnaires were defeated at the southern tip of the city. 5 hours later, an even larger force, now led by Legate Quintus, marched on the small army of cowboys. 1,200 legionnaires engaged in a chaotic battle with Roy and his platoon. The sheer numbers overtook the cowboys, and Roy perished with his soldiers. Upon hearing that his son had died in battle, Billy ordered a pincer attack on Quintus. They engaged in brutal fighting with legionnaires in the middle of the night. Superior firepower proved too much for the Legion light infantry, and the cowboys emerged victorious. Legate Quintus realized too late that he was surrounded. Billy met Quintus in a pitched battle outside the city limits. Still suffering casualties from their previous fight, Billy and his platoon were overrun. Quintus defeated Billy in a duel, but before he could strike the killing blow on Billy, the southern platoon flanked the legionnaires. They let loose a blanket of gunfire and killed Quintus along with the rest of his men. It was only a matter of time before the Legion collapsed. With the majority of their army gone, they had no way to stop the cowboys and the hangdogs. I'd like to thank everyone for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a comment and subscribe. We'll meet again in the next one.